Tradition's kind of a funny thing, isn't it? Normally, if someone told you to throw yourself headfirst down an incredibly steep hill in pursuit of a wheel of cheese, you would likely have some reservations. But when doing exactly this is a 600-year-old tradition, suddenly you have no shortage of eager volunteers lining up to shatter their elbows in pursuit of honour, glory, and a delicious, creamy double Gloucester. This, then, is a brief history of the Cooper's Hill cheese rolling and wake. The sight of otherwise sane individuals yeeting themselves down a grassy incline in pursuit of a cheese wheel naturally begs some very pertinent questions. So let's structure this video around the ones you're most likely to want an answer to. First, what is this? The Cooper's Hill Cheese Rolling and Wake is an annual event which takes place during the spring bank holiday weekend just outside the village of Brockworth in England. Just outside this very charming village is in fact Cooper's Hill itself. A large, partly wooded, partly grassy hill, which is extremely steep on one side. I just want to take a moment to labour a point here. Bear with me, it's relevant. I say the hill is steep, but I want to just make sure you understand that it is really, really steep. Now, of course, I'm a bird, so it's no issue for me, but for a human, that's basically a grassy cliff. Fall down Cooper's Hill and you're essentially falling vertically downward, but with the ground giving you a hefty kick every now and then to ensure you don't get too comfortable. This hill is, I'm trying to say, really, really steep. But despite its steepness, every year people gather on this hill in their thousands to watch a small number of hardy souls get absolutely battered as they attempt to chase a wheel of cheese down the incline. Injuries are common, expected even, and yet people volunteer anyway. The aim of the game is to catch the cheese, but given that it can reach speeds of up to 70 miles per hour, that's clearly impossible. And so the winner is instead the person who reaches the bottom of the hill first. Given that they'll likely be moving at an unmanageable speed when they do get there, the event employs a local rugby team to help gently and lovingly arrest their descent. Once the lucky winner has been caught, regained consciousness and had their shoulder put back into its socket, they're awarded the cheese itself as their prize. There are multiple races throughout the day, including a couple of uphill races for anyone who wants to participate but doesn't fancy a fractured tibia. And in recent years, there's even a kids race, which is again uphill, rather than down. Plus, there's a good bit of ceremony as well. The cheese is traditionally wrapped by residents of a local care home and then paraded to the hill by locals dressed in homemade costumes. There it is blessed before being launched into the void by the elaborately dressed master of ceremonies with this traditional ditty. 1 to be ready, 2 to be steady, 3 for the cheese, and 4 to be off. Lovely. Oh, and while we're talking about tradition, this being Britain, a lot of people go to the pub afterwards. The local Toby Carvery is a popular choice, but a little further afield in Sherdington is the appropriately named Cheese Rollers Bar and Restaurant. A pub which winners in previous years have been known to frequent in order to relax, sup a pint, and sample their hard-won cheese. So that's basically the concept of the cheese rolling in a nutshell, although I guess I should also mention that it's become insanely popular in recent years. Thousands of people flock to the hill each year, watching proceedings from their own precarious perches in the woods on either side of the hill. In fact, there's been so much interest that the BBC, that's the UK's national broadcaster, has even taken to live streaming the event. The cheese roll is filmed from drones, live blogged by multiple journalists, and reported around the world. For one weekend a year, the normally sleepy village of Brockworth absolutely overflows with visitors. Up to 15,000 people descend, or more accurately ascend onto the hill, all of it with minimal organisation, basically no marshalling, and certainly no insurance. Which leads to your second question. 2. How is this allowed? Britain is a famously risk-averse country. We have a proud history of banning everything from children running in the playground to people flying kites on the beach. How then does this patently unsafe tradition continue to play out year after year when injuries are not just likely, but basically guaranteed? Well, one way it manages to keep on existing is by having no specific organisers. No person or company publicly takes responsibility for organising the cheese roll. It belongs to nobody, and so if you took part, broke your leg and then wanted to sue someone, looking at you, America, You'd have a really hard time figuring out who you should actually be aiming your litigation at. That's not to say that there are no organisers. There are, but after the lovely lady who made the cheese was threatened by a police officer in 2013, they keep a deliberately low profile. In a sense, they just happen to be chucking a cheese down a hill. If anyone else happens to turn up and chase it, that's nothing to do with them. And also, of course, there's the fact that, despite our obsession with health and safety, you are legally allowed to do a surprising amount of dangerous stuff. If you want to throw yourself down a hill, you can do so. The health and safety executive will advise against it and will have very little sympathy for you if you get hurt while doing so, but it's certainly not illegal by any means. This is the same principle that allows people to participate in extreme sports. If you know there's danger and accept the danger and do the activity anyway, you kind of can't complain when you shatter your collarbone. An interesting side note here. Back in 2010, the organisers did try to make the cheese rolling into an official event, one with insurance and tickets and stewards and signage. They saw it as a way of ensuring the future of the roll by limiting visitor numbers and imposing safety standards. An interesting idea, but local cheese fans weren't having it. They didn't want the roll to be ticketed. They didn't want it to be gate-kept, and they feared that any attempt to make it safer would eradicate the tradition once and for all. There was a big furore, lots of angry letters, and eventually the organisers climbed down and went underground. We ended up with the big, chaotic, entirely open and thoroughly unofficial cheese roll that we have today. And that's probably a good thing, at least for cheese roll continuity. No matter what happens, the event can't be banned. Not really. If it was ever outlawed, there's a very good chance people would just turn up on the hill and chuck some double Gloucester down it anyway. Trying to stop an event like the cheese roll would be about as easy as trying to stop a 70-mile-per-hour cheese wheel. It just isn't going to happen. But why does it happen in the first place anyhow? 3. Why do they do this? Nobody knows. 4. Has anyone ever died? No, just kidding. Let's go back to the why bit. It's accurate to say that nobody knows why the cheese roll exists. The event has been running for so long that the origins are lost in the mists of time. But there are certainly theories. Let's look at the evidence we do have. One of the first written references to the cheese roll is in a local paper from 1836, which advertises the upcoming Cooper's Hill Wake. A wake was a traditional festival held in many British villages, and was a bit like a modern village fete. There'd be food, drink, stalls, entertainment, games, and general festivity. The Cooper's Hill Wake wasn't short of games, and many of them had prizes. You could wrestle for a belt, gurn through a horse's collar, or be dipped in the tube for some oranges, whatever that means. And, of course, there were cheeses to be run for. But this early mention of the cheese roll seems to be referencing an event that has been going on for some time. It's the first written record, but it's not the start of the event. Some historians trace that back even further, suggesting that it evolved from an ancient pagan ritual wherein flaming wooden wheels were rolled downhill to ensure a bountiful harvest. Others suggest that the rolling of a cheese may once have had some legal function, with it being a way to assert ownership over a given field. I'm not a lawyer, but this one strikes me as unlikely. Even in the 1600s, history would have been a lot messier if you could lay claim to your neighbour's turnip field simply by rolling some dairy onto it. Some people go further and suggest that it may even be an ancient Roman tradition, making it potentially not just hundreds but thousands of years old. The simple fact is we just don't know, but we do know that, for whatever reason, it's a thing that's been done year in, year out for an exceptionally long time. It really is a quite amazingly continuous tradition. Yes, there have been years when it was different, sure. Like during the Second World War when rationing was in full force and they used a wooden cheese. Or during the COVID pandemic in 2020 and 2021 when the cheese was rolled without anyone chasing it. But one way or another, for literal centuries, people have been climbing up Cooper's Hill and bowling a big whack of fromage down the side of it in front of an appreciative audience. 4. Has anyone ever died? Miraculously, no. There are injuries, of course, and sometimes bad ones. One account I found mentioned a reversed foot, which really doesn't sound particularly lovely. But in the official record, nobody has ever been killed or paralysed while chasing the cheese. Which is, if you've seen the event itself, Astonishing. Likewise, there haven't been any deaths among spectators. That's good news in recent years and extremely good news in years hence, when the cheese weighed as much as 35 pounds or 16 kilograms and would sometimes cannon off into the crowd at random. All things considered, I have no idea whatsoever how nobody has died during the cheese roll. But there it is. To sate your bloodlust though, there is one death that was rumoured to have occurred sometime back in the early 1900s. It involved an unlucky man named Billy, who was brained by a cheesy wheel while walking up the hill to watch the roll. Billy is likely fictional, but whether he's real or imagined, local historian Kenneth Hare proposed this rhyming epitaph for his grave. Here lies Billy, if you please, hit in the stomach with a cheese. Cheese is wholesome fare, they say, but it turned Billy into clay. 5. Who usually wins? The cheese roll attracts all sorts of competitors from all over the world, and so there's really no knowing who the prized cheeses will go to in a given year. But a couple of cheese roll superstars deserve mention here. First is Florence Early, who first ran the event when she was just 17 years old, and went on to win 4 times before retiring at 31 years old. She's notable for her cheerful demeanour, remaining incredibly relaxed and upbeat in victory even with a broken collarbone. She was in a Netflix documentary about the cheese roll, and compares the experience of going down the hill to being repeatedly rugby tackled over and over again. But when she says it, she somehow makes it sound fun as well. And then there's Chris Anderson, who's won the cheese a staggering 23 times without sustaining any brain damage. A feat that earned him a Guinness World Record, and which inspired his son and his nephew to compete in and win the kids' races in 2026. Clearly, cheese roll greatness runs in the family. Lately, the race has been attracting more and more athletes, with competitors coming from all over the world. In 2026, a random Florida man who just happened to be passing took part last minute on a whim and scored a victory in one of the men's downhill races, while German YouTuber Tom Kopke took another. The next generation of cheese roll superstars are, it's clear, already fermenting. 6. Can I go and watch it? Yes, you can. The event has remained stubbornly open access year after year, and so if you can make your way to Cooper's Hill on the appropriate day, you can watch. Expect glorious, messy chaos. You'll be packed in with thousands of other spectators on one of the steepest hills you've ever seen, with a palpable sense of danger in the air. And it will be, let me assure you, spectacular. In fact, if you feel the urge, you can even compete. All you need to do is get to the top of the hill in plenty of time, carefully suspend any sense of danger, and then hurl yourself down it as fast as you can. If you do decide to compete, well, let me pass on some advice from one of the unofficial organisers. Let's see, what was it she said? Ah yes, her advice for anyone thinking of participating in the cheese roll was, don't.